Welcome everybody to ASFishingTV. My name's Adam Shilton and we are back at the well-renowned and fantastic Culmore Fisheries on what was very famous Arena Pool. As usual, in typical ASFishingTV fashion, the weather has been atrocious today. So when we do live matches, it seems to be bad draw. When we come out and do filming, it seems to be bad weather. But we've just braked a little bit slightly, so it's given us just enough chance to have a look today at these fantastic products, which are the MAP, brand new MAP Embed Feeders. They're absolutely superb. Quite a few different features in these that set them apart from what has come before. But there's some similarities from other products on the market as well. So, what do we talk about first with the MAP Embed Feeders? Well, first and foremost, they're available in 3 different sizes. Small, medium, large. Dead simple. You can see it's labelled really nicely on the packaging, and these are available to buy in the shops right now. See, I've only got to talk about them and the fish jumping out of the water. Yeah, so small, medium, large, absolutely fantastic. It comes with the stem, with the rubber, and with the connection as well, being able to put your hook length on, all comes in the same package. You don't have to buy anything separate. Literally each one that you buy is ready to go. All you got to do is take it off the packaging and put it on your line. Jobs are good, nice and simple. So other features with this product: it's a hybrid feeder, so there's very big wings on either side, similar to lots of others on the market. The main feature that sets it apart is the line clip. They've all got line clips in the bottom, and it just means that you can clip your line in there, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute, and ultimately change the length of your hook length without having to actually change the hook length physically that you would normally do. So for example, if I was fishing for F1s on these feeders, I would usually use used to use a 3-inch hook length, just because they're a bit smaller, generally speaking, in size, and it meant that I would hook more fish because the hook length was short enough for them to suck it in, feel the weight, and obviously it's then a self-hooking device. If I use a 4-inch hook length for big carp, I now can clip it in here, or don't use the clip. I can use it without the clip as well. Depends how I want to do it. Depends on what's best on the day. But obviously with technology nowadays, we've been able to see things like underwater footage and see big fish especially sucking in pellets on a 4-inch hook length and spitting them out again without it even showing up on the feeder. So the thing is for us is to shorten down the hook length using a line clip. Now that's perfect in terms of for hooking the fish. So even with small and big fish can be quite tricky to hook. But in both cases here, it seems to solve that problem. It's been a complete game changer in my feeder fishing, and certainly resulted in a lot more fish in the net, which is fantastic. The thing for me is that if you were to try and fish a shorter hook length for big fish, you know, 4, 5, 6 pound upwards, what you're left with then, as you know, the hooking is really good, is the feeder is then sat very close to the hook point, and when a big fish is shaking its head round and you've got the weight of the feeder moving it round on the line, it's easier for that bigger fish just to shake the hook, and obviously then it's coming off, especially just over the net when the pressure on the hook point is at its worst. This kind of solves that problem. You can still fish the 3-inch hook length or shorter, even down to 1 inch. But it just means that once it actually is picked up the bait and it's pricked and it hooks it, as the fish turns, as it feels the weight of the feeder, it's just enough to pop the line out of the clip, and then you're back at your 4-inch hook length again. So you've actually done the tricky bit, which is hooking the fish, and then you've got the safety and peace of mind of that slightly longer hook length, so when it is shaking its head over the net, you've still got at least that 4 inches there, and it just means that you can fish with a lot more security. It's massive for me, you know, I fish a lot of matches, so I want to have complete confidence in the products that I'm using, and these do that absolutely abundantly, which is fantastic. Other few features on here, the base, it's got holes in it very similar to all the others, but the base is curved, to put it simply for you. That just means that it doesn't, especially on like silty or clay bottoms, it doesn't stick and suck to the bottom too much. What it does as well is it allows a bit of water to get underneath for the holes in the base, and what that means is that not only does it push your pellets out really, really well, but when if you say, for example, like today I've been casting in, and if I've not had a bite or indication after 3 minutes, I've been reeling back in again. When you have not had a bite and you reel in, or you pull your feeder to reel in, traditionally you end up with a big line of pellets or ground bait that have come out the feeder. Because of the holes in the bottom of this, these MAP embed feeders, and because of the curved bottom, as soon as that feeder is moved, your bait comes out and stays in a nice tight pile. You don't end up with that big line of food. So it just means that you can concentrate everything down on that kind of, you know, side plate kind of size, 6 to 8 inch size that you want to be hitting every time. So it's a fantastic design feature that's really, really, again, made a difference in terms of accuracy as well. While I'm talking about the curved bottom, it's also aided in aerodynamics, and it just means that there's been some feeders that are very flat that I've used before. I've had to put a longer stem on the feeder, casting a longer distance to try and maintain stability with the feeder in flight. Because of the curved bottoms on these, I've not felt the need to do that at all. In fact, not only that, I've been able to use slightly lighter feeders even on windier days, where before I didn't have that option. So it's just been a case of a design feature that's made a difference for us again, you know, and it just being out using it, you know, numerous times a week has made a huge difference in the way that I've been attacking my feeder fishing, which has been fantastic. So there we go, in quick terms, some of the main features of the fantastic MAP embed feeders. I'm going to get one of these on my rod, get fishing, let's see if we can winkle out a few silvers and hopefully some bonus carp as well. That way you get to see just how versatile these products are. Let's go and give it a go. So like I said, hook bait in one place, you've got it. I've already put the line in the clip, so I'm going to leave the hook bait dangling out to one side, like so. Now all I'm going to do then is half fill the feeder. Give it a little press down, just like you do with all the others. Okay, then I want my hook bait over the top of that, which is again Revolution Baits feed pellets with the hook pointing up. It's quite important, hook pointing up. And all I'm doing then is filling on top of that. It's a bit difficult to do it at this angle. Okay, there we go. So nice and simple, dead straightforward. That's the way that you do it with the hybrid feeders. And that's then ready to go and cast in, no issues at all. Just a little tip for today, it's sometimes, especially when it's windy, you might struggle with the line just getting stuck around the top of your rod. Obviously you can bring it back and untangle it manually, but a good tip sometimes that works quite well for you is if this line here, if you just let your main line go slack, just drop your rod into the water, a nice little sharp tug up, okay, and it comes out nice and straightforward just like so. Just make sure though then when you're loading your feeder in particular, I just sit on the bottom of my rod rest. I just sit on the bottom of my rod like that, okay? And it means that when I'm loading my feeder now, I'm keeping the main line tight and there's a bend in the tip. So that way it's not going to become tangled around the top at all. It only happens really when you let your line go slack, your main line go slack, and then you're loading your feeder, and that's when you end up with a tangle around the top. But obviously I'll give you a tip to see how you can get out of that. So there's a tip for today. Tips for casting, especially when you're using MAP EMBED feeders. It's so important. There's a lot of things that I see go wrong really quickly. So just make sure first and foremost with your reel hand, if you're right-handed, it's your right hand. If you're left-handed, it's your left hand. Just make sure that that's positioned correctly. Your fingers either side of the reel handle, okay? And you just hold it onto it nice and firmly. I'm looking down on the palm of my hand, okay? On the back of the palm of my hand here, the back of my hand. So that's nice and steady. And my elbow generally is underneath, the rod, sorry, is underneath my elbow. Okay, so everything's in a nice straight line, and it just becomes, the rod literally just becomes from my elbow an absolute extension of my arm, my casting arm, which is my right arm. That's the first thing. The second thing is distance between your feeder or the bomb and the top of your rod. It needs to be about 1 meter, generally speaking. Okay, what you don't want, sometimes I see it all the way down here. Okay, that's about two and a bit meters there, actually, to be fair, like that. Sometimes people see it too long. What happens then, even if you release the line at the right time, the feeder will go flying up in the air and you'll end up with a really big arch or trajectory, and then it'll land very out of control and with a very big splash. Equally, another problem that you see is this. So the feeder is really close to the tip of the rod. And again, it's just a very quick way to break the tip of your rod more than anything. It just puts a lot of pressure on the tip, you lose control. And again, even if you release the line at the right time as the rod comes over your shoulders, chances are that the feeder is going to land like in the middle of the lake, really short, and it's going to land like a bullet, scaring the fish all over the place. So it's so important that you get the length of line right, and it should be, like I say, about 1 meter. Okay, there it is there. So once you've got that set, like that is, just make sure you're holding onto the line. Now, if you've got big enough fingers, it can reach down to the spool and you can hold the line. If you're somebody a bit smaller or a bit younger potentially, you can still hook it around your finger, okay, like I have done there. So I'm just hooking it around that finger, nice and easy. It just means then that once I bring the rod back over, all I need to do is take my finger away from that line and it releases nice and perfectly. Okay, so it's so important that you do that. The next part is making sure you go right over your shoulder. Now again, I see this go wrong. If you go, I want the rod, so I'm right-handed, the rod needs to pass right over my right hand shoulder so that it's just coming past my ear here. Okay, and as you see, as it comes back behind me, my left hand, the free hand, that goes on the base of the rod on the bottom. I'm not holding on to it like for life, you know, it's just nice and loose so I've got control. So that when the rod goes through, I'm looking at the spot that I've picked on the far bank the whole time when I'm not turning around looking at you lot. Okay, so it's over my right hand shoulder. This hand goes on the base of the rod there. Keep focused on where I'm going, and then as I go through, that's when I release as it comes to the 12 o'clock position, and then I point the rod at the point that I've been aiming at the whole time. Once everything's in flight at that point, I bring the rod back up to the 12 o'clock position because I'm fishing to a clip today, and then that just means that the softness of the rod will cushion the feeder as it lands nice and accurately in the right place. It's so important that you do it that way because you want the feeder to land with the flat side down so it protects the contents that are inside the feeder. And again, that just means it ends up fishing on the bottom with all your bait intact exactly as you need it to from these brilliant embed feeders from MAP. Okay, so it's all that nice big swift motion. So like I said to you again, just making sure you've got no tangles, the drop is exactly correct as it needs to be. At that point then I hold onto my line, take the bail arm off, okay, and then I'm picking my spot, the same spot I've been fishing to all day. I'm going to pass the rod over my shoulder till it gets behind me. When it comes back over my head, that's when I release the line, follow it through, bringing it back up to the 12 o'clock position again so that it hits the clip nice and soft. Okay, so here we go, looking at that point all the time, nice and smooth over, one big motion, off it goes, 12 o'clock position, it's the clip, splot. There you go. Not a big spadoosh, we just get a nice land on the water. So I'm now on the clip. Now this is also important, not to quote one of the most famous fishermen in the world, but I'm going to anyway, good old Tommy. It's so important now that you don't move the feeder. Now because when I hit the clip I brought the rod up to 12 o'clock, it means I've got quite a bit of line to play with. So that line's nice and free. That just means then that once it's landed and the feeder has hit the bottom, only at that point, okay, do I bring it over and knock the bail arm back on again. And all I do then is using my left hand, okay, is I slowly sink the line. Some people do it reeling in, okay, and you can do for a little bit of it, but when it starts to sink nicely, I'm just pulling it with my left hand until it sinks the line all the way through. You can see it doing it. And then I've got lots of line left. I've got a few turns on the reel because it was clipped up, and it just means then I can set my tip in the right position. I've got an ever so slight gentle bend in it, which you can see there, and that means if the fish picks it up and runs towards me, it's absolutely fine because I can see that it drops back. Okay, but equally, if the fish take the bait and just go left or right or a bit further away from me, obviously I'm going to see the pull round of the tip, which is absolutely perfect. So there we go, that is casting in with the embed feeders for MAP, and casting in general, to be fair, but hopefully that helps you to keep things really accurate, really consistent, and that will result in you putting more fish in your net. So there we go, a fabulous 2 hours fishing at the wonderful Cudmore Fisheries on Arena Lake. It's been really good having a good play and a trial with the MAP embed feeders. They're absolutely fantastic. The ability to change that length of hook length when you're using 4-inch hook length is absolutely brilliant, and I've swapped and changed that quite a lot today, just in the same way as you would do for hook baits and things like that. So, you know, for the first outing with them, I've learned loads today, which has been fantastic. Like I said to you, make sure that you load the feeder, clip the line in first before you put anything else in. Okay, clip the line in first with pressure on either side, just like I showed you. Half load the feeder, put your hook bait in, hook pointing upwards, finish loading the feeder on top of that if you want to put more feed on, and obviously give it a squeeze before casting out exactly as you were shown. Just before I go, we'll show you what we've caught today, or a few fish that we've caught today. We didn't want to keep them in the keep nets too long, so just a little selection. And get yourself down here, it's absolutely fantastic. Again, we love to be here at Cudmore. Massive thank you to Steve, who's let us film here today, which is always appreciated. Here's a little bit of the catch. My name's Adam Shilton from ASFishingTV, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the bank very soon.